Hello, it's me, Kyle. Welcome to Give Pause Hobby, the channel where I take time to appreciate the things I love to fill my free time with. And for the first time in a while, not in a referential way or not in some like sneaky other way, it's real root content again. Isn't that exciting? Woohoo! Yeah, so this I'm holding, not just because it's the smallest and the easiest to just kind of, show on screen, but this is specifically about the hirelings. I don't know if you can see that word there. And this is a second, I printed it out here. This is a second take on how to use the hirelings with our beloved, here on the channel, our beloved ROOTbots. And this is brought to us by Nichita Brunner. Sorry if I'm totally botching one or both of those. And I originally saw it on the Woodland Warriors Discord, which was a link to the BGG thing, which I have linked down below, so you can go check it out. 3 pages. I didn't resize anything, any page borders or make the words any smaller. So 3 pages is all you're going to get. Even at what it just copy and paste into Google Doc. So it's not very long. And I just want to start off right from the beginning saying this is a big change, a big difference from the other. These are both essentially house ruled versions of how to use the bots and the hirelings in conjunction. And this is a very different take. The other version that S put out was extensive and incredibly impressive. That it took every single hireling and it either just adjusted the language to make it so things that ever say choose something or whatever are made into a language that the robots understand, or they're completely changed to something that would be workable and or like would make sense for the bot. This ain't that. This is just this is more of a kind of global rule set that you're going to apply, which there are obviously pros and cons to both. I think a huge pro of this one by Nichita is that you don't need to print anything out. You don't even need to print this out. As you'll see when I go through the rules, it's probably stuff you could just imagine it would work the way you think it would, because you are essentially piloting the hirelings through the lens of the ROOTbot that controls them. Excuse me. But I'll have more to talk about, the overall, my feelings on it at the end. But let's get right into how this works. I don't think this will be a super long video. I do intend to do a couple playthroughs at some point with the 2 systems. I have no idea, which way the wind is blowing in terms of where Benjamin or Leader Games would like the clockwork version of these to go. Obviously, this version would be a lot less things to print out or publish. It'd just be a rule set. But like I said, pros and cons to both, and we'll talk more about this in conjunction with how I feel about the other one after we've gone through it. So, right from the beginning, there's just saying why he did this, that, searching on BGG, bots are not compatible with hirelings, which is true. Then this paragraph saying why use them together. That's a great follow-up question, because I'm sure a lot of people think, well, you already have ROOTbots. If you want to play a solo game or fill out like seats at a table, you got that capability. Why use the hirelings, which are really designed to shore up small or medium-sized play groups with just more color on the map? And I think it gives really good explanation of just saying like, well, they're there, and I think that just because we're solo or low player count, we're using the ROOTbots, doesn't mean it should preclude us from using these hirelings. So I agree. Okay, so then a disclaimer saying this is entirely based on Benjamin Schmaus and Leader Games' work. Only take credit for the small interaction. Everybody is welcome to suggest changes and to experiment themselves to further improve the system. And we'll come back to that point at the end of the video. All right, so now we're into the actual steps. Step 1, choose the hirelings. So this is the first actual change from the hirelings rule set, because you are going to track the number of human players, and that's it. And you're always obviously going to have 3 hirelings set per the rules, but the number of human players is going to dictate how many demoted versions of the hirelings you're using. So if you only have 1 human player and 3 bots, you're only ever demoting 1. So you still have militant, or not militant, but like the version, the promoted with the pieces on board that can do battle or whatever their hirelings do. And this is one that Nichita admits is could use a little bit of tweaking. Not entirely 100% certain that this is the right balance to strike, but it is what it is. So for every player you add, human player, you're going to turn 1 more promoted bot into a demoted bot. Step 2, setting up the hirelings. So it gives some options here, and I'll give my thoughts on that in a second. Option 1, draw a card from the deck. The suit will determine the target suit of the placement. Discard it afterwards. If the card is a bird suit, redraw a new card and shuffle the bird card back into the deck. Since many bots benefit from bird cards, this should shift the odds towards them a very small bit. Option 2 is going to be roll the mob or uprising die to determine the target suit of the placement. Afterwards, set up the hirelings in the clearing of lowest priority matching the drawn cards or rolled suit. I see no reason to not use those dice. For purposes of randomizing suits moving forward, those dice, yes, they are tucked away in my kit. One is in the Spring Uprising hireling little baggie. The other is in the Lord of the Hundreds bag. But there's no reason, to my knowledge, you have that there as a randomizing element. And if it gets to the point where there are enough things, at least as a primarily solo player, that I'm using them to randomize stuff, then I might take one of those out of those kits and just store it with like my regular battle dice to have on hand. Because I did see some comments online that was just saying like, why would you do this to the deck when you already have dice to randomize it? And that actually might have been before the 2 options were given. And then option 2 was just, oh, you have the dice, just use that. To me, it's just clean. Yes, it involves another a component of the game, but I'm perfectly fine with that, because I do agree that, if you're reshuffling bird cards but taking out the other cards, it just, changes the game that little bit, because some bots do really do feel very different when they draw a bird card on their turn instead of not. And you would be doing this for 3 different bots or hirelings. So, this could have a pretty big impact. Not to mention just like removing craftable items from the game. So anyways, I would always choose option 2, which is roll the dice, but that's just me. Setup 3, gaining control of hirelings. Hirelings are acquired in the standard way by being the first to hit a certain point threshold. If a bot would have multiple hirelings to choose from, they will randomly receive one. So that works exactly as you would imagine. The thresholds don't change. The bots get them at those thresholds, and if there are multiples, they just draw randomly. That's exactly how I ran them with the other system. Bots will always pass the hireling to the last player. Again, that's how I did it in the past 2. In case of a tie, determine randomly who receives the hireling. The human player also passes the hireling to the bot or human player with the least points. So I don't quite understand that last part. I'm not sure why. I don't understand. The human player also passes the hireling to the bot or human player with the least points. That's a great recommendation, but it's totally up to the human players what they do. It struck me as odd that it was included in here, because that to me isn't a rule we need to, figure out, because the humans those rules exist. You can give them to whoever you want, and the bot can, respond in kind. But yeah, I'm not sure if that was an earlier version or if I'm missing an edge case or a subtlety of that, but it seems odd that that would be included, because to me it doesn't seem like it needs to be. Step 4, using the hirelings. Now we're really getting into the meat and potatoes. Bots always do the actions of the hirelings immediately in their respective phases. If the action is in birdsong, the bot will first determine their ordered suit by drawing that ordered card. When given an option, they will check if the first option is executable. The bot will repeat that check with the next option if no action has been taken. Whenever bots are tasked to spend a card in order to use the hireling action, they will simply do the action ignoring this condition. All right, so there's some stuff to unpack. These things happen right away in whatever, beginning of turn, birdsong, daylight, and they get to do them without having to spend a card. So the example Nichita gives is with feline physicians. The bot faction warriors are removed from the board. Immediately replace them in a determined clearing with your pieces. So no cards given, which means they're going to be extra strong. Every one of those abilities that there is a cost of discarding a card to do it is just going to be stronger when the bots have control of it. Which I don't think is a huge issue. I think, not to say that all the bots are underpowered, because that's definitely not true, but as long as you recognize that as a player, the landscape of the game can respond to it. You have to just see the power in those hirelings and take control of them, or try to keep them out of the hands of the bots as best you can. I know that's not totally possible, but just know it's going to make these things more powerful than they would be for you as the human player. The other example he gives is for when there are multiple options, so like vault keepers. Do I have any troops to battle, and is there an enemy to battle? No? Okay, then I will build another vault. So the way that the bots are set up, it already makes sense, because they are putting the question whether something is possible right at the top, and then the other thing that's just kind of generally beneficial underneath it, and the bots take advantage of that. Okay, cool, so we'll try to do the first one, and if we can't, the second one will happen, and it'll in most cases be beneficial to me down the road as well. All right, so also step 4, determining target and priority. Hireling pieces are placed into, and hireling warriors or pawns are moved from or to clearings of the lowest priority that match the current order card of the bot. No such clearing, lowest priority clearing that meets condition of the action. Whenever battle occurs and a defender needs to be determined, the enemy with the most points, then the enemy with the most buildings and tokens is chosen. So, again, a little bit of a spicy paragraph to unpack here. So this is really, these two, again, I don't know if they're actually supposed to be both step 4. They're the same thing, essentially. They're part of using the hirelings and determining target and priority. And these two are the heart of this system right here. Because in theory, taking these two steps and applying them to all the different hirelings means you don't need different versions of the cards with different rules. You are just able to interpret what the bot at hand would do with the hirelings. The ordered card is going to be super important, because it's going to determine lots and lots and lots of stuff. So if you have to target one clearing over any other, like all the ones with the the vault keepers, where are you going to do battle with them? Where are you going to place things? Where are you going to move from or to? Those are all determined by the order card, which I get to at the end, but spoiler, I do like that. Now, if there isn't a clearing that you can move to that is ordered clearing, there just aren't any of those around the hireling pieces. You're just going to go to the one with the lowest priority that meets the action. Bye. Goodness. I do like how setup and this here, actually using the hirelings, does favor the low priority clearings, because these are not the heavy hitters, like the main characters of the war that's taking place. These are animals in the background, and so they're reluctant to step into the spotlight of the high priority clearings. I do really like that, and it also, there's so much that focuses on high priority stuff in the bot world, obviously, that it's nice that these are doing the opposite, because that means for most of the bots, they'll have to seek that out, or they won't just be immediately mapped right on top of it. Now, there are some that do prioritize low priority clearings, and that'll make some interesting interactions, because it'll just put these hirelings and ROOTbots in the same clearings naturally, which, if they're on the same team, if that bot has control of those hirelings, that's great. If not, could be not so great. And then obviously determining an enemy is super easy. Most points, and then most combined building tokens. All right, final step, enjoy. This should be enough to get you started with your hybrid bot hirelings game. Most hirelings work seamlessly with those rules. However, a couple of edge cases, tricky interactions, which I will clarify now. All right, so the first one is the exile. It says a bot will always give their items to the exile, resulting them to gain 2 victory points. That's not really a change. They just clarify that's because any drawn cards for the bots become victory points. So the only part is that the bot will always give items to the exile. That's the change. For Warm Sun Prophets, a bot will always try to avoid being the one who is forced to battle. Destination clearing for the forced move is determined as usual. Defender is determined as usual. So again, those are just like in S's system, where it said you determine something, has to be changed, because you can't just leave that. But in this one, it's pretty efficient and streamlined, because you can kind of leave it like that as long as you have a prioritization list like Nichita does here. Mole Artisans, whenever a bot crafts an item, score an additional victory point. So obviously the benefit of not having to discard the card would not actually benefit the bot, so they just get an extra victory point for it, which means they would get 2, because no matter how many victory points the item is worth, it's only going to be worth 1 to the bot, so in this case it would be worth 2. All right, for Corvid Spies, whenever the bot has less points than a possible defender, they will choose option 2. This will give them a point, and any human player will need to discard a random card. So obviously the place 2 spies in any clearings with enemy pieces still exists, but then they're saying if they are trailing the defender in victory points, they're not going to even bother battling. They're just going to reduce their hand size and take a victory point for it, because, again, they can't actually take that card that they're stealing. They just get the point. All right, Rat Smugglers. Whenever a bot uses a card to determine their suit or action, and the card shows an item, the bot will immediately battle in a determined clearing. So this one is a little bit tricky. I believe I understand this to mean, the only time they'd be using a card is for their ordered card. And obviously their ordered card, that means they get to craft an item. I would say this, that they would get to immediately battle, when they reveal that card, and it says in a determined clearing. Each faction that battles, well, I guess they all battle, but each faction has their own priority on their ROOTbot board as to which clearings they would want to battle in and targeting which opponents. I would use that. So this would just mean if you flip up the card for the ordered card and it has an item, I guess craft the item and then do 1 battle, going off of the priorities of that ROOTbots, what they focus on for battling, which again, that's not totally laid out here, but that's how my brain would interpret that. And I think that's pretty cool, because that would definitely add some randomness to, and a big change, because lots of bots, their order of actions is purposefully put in place. And so the fact that an extra one battle would happen each turn if an item comes up could make a big difference in a lot of different stuff. So yeah, that one's interesting. And last but not least, highway bandits. All right, it says, in order to determine the lowest priority path, sum up both ends of the path to determine path priority. So again, the hirelings are really interested in low priority stuff. So you're just going to, the priority markers on either end of a path, add those up, and the sum gives you the priority. Excuse me. And now I'm pretty sure, without me double checking, but no, I'm for sure there are going to be ties with that system. Anything that goes to priority is going to have a tiebreaker because there's only one of each number. However, there are not going to be only one of each sum. So for instance, 1 and 8 and 2 and 7 would get you both 9. So I would say, in that case, if there's a tie between two things, I suppose you could just randomly choose between them, but I would say if there's a tie between two pathways for their combined priority, whichever of them has the lower individual priority included, that one breaks, because then there would be no tie. So in that case, 1 and 8 and 2 and 7, that would go to the 1 and 8 one. Because I guess it has both the highest and the lowest individual priority. And that's it. Those are the weird ones that need extra rules. As far as I know, when I looked through, they were correct. The rest of them can be sussed out with what's written here. Yeah, so final words. In order to create the system, I've only done 3 plays with always 1 human player, 2 bots. Therefore, I really can't tell you how this works at 2 players. This is where all of you can jump in. If anyone wants to play with both expansions, now you can, and I would be happy to hear your experiences. I'm very open for constructive criticism and hope we can improve this until the official leader game Clockwork 3 arrives. And down below they have a link to documentation where they, it's super simple. I for sure intend on using this. I've learned it and done a little bit of learning turns, but I haven't played a full game with this because life has been a little crazy with the kiddos at home. But I fully intend on letting them know how things go with this system, and seeing if things can improve. Not saying that they need to, but just repetition is a good thing to do. So my thoughts. Again, have not played this one, have only played the S1 a few times. And I've learned it, but I haven't actually played full games with it. I think there's a lot to love about this system and not a lot to not love. I think it's going to, by virtue of the fact that it targets the order card that the bot is already going to be targeting, I think there's going to be a lot of times where the bots wind up using the hirelings to soften up targets that they're already going to go for themselves, which is a perfectly valid way to use the hirelings. If you know you want to be attacking a certain clearing and you have access to one of the militant hirelings, you can just move in and do some damage and then move in with yours and not have to do as much damage. So I think that's great. There were times with S's system, which is really, really impressive, and I think also really great in a totally different way. There are times when the hirelings and the bots seem to be kind of having like false orders of their own. I guess you could say if it's good for or if it's bad for my enemy, it's good for me. So they're doing damage somewhere, or they're causing havoc somewhere, and the bot can be like, okay, great, but this is going to focus them a little bit more, which I guess could wind up in cases where the hirelings and the bots are just going to wind up moving in tandem. As soon as a bot takes control of a hireling, the hireling just kind of like goes along as a little tag along, which again wouldn't be outside the realm of what happens, not more often than not, but definitely sometimes when people take control of certain hirelings, they just tend to move around with them. So makes total sense. I also think that there's a lot to be said. The way that this system breaks down questions that you might have of priority and, you know, what clearing is going to and actions it's taking by using the order card and using this like little kind of priority chart outside of the priority clear. I need to come up with a different word, because it takes the hireling and it translates them through what the current bot is doing. There were times with the other system, it didn't feel like I was playing, you know, me and 2 other bots with Hirelings game. It felt like I was playing a me and 5 bot game, because on each bot's turn and each hireling's turn, I was essentially having to go through a little order of operations. Now the hirelings, they're very short. It's not like there's, you know, birdsong, daylight, and evening for each one of those. It's just 1 or 2 actions. But it's, you know, for each one it's slightly different. I tried to, in my video on that, which if I haven't already, here are links to that. Beep, boop, 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 boop. I tried to make things cleaner by putting all those acronyms or little you know, symbols for if it was like high victory points, high number of warriors, high number of buildings, because all of that was really thematic and they were translated well to, you know, what the hirelings would be going after. But the unfortunate side of that is it just means there's a lot to parse on every card of the hirelings, and you know, there's only 3 in a game. You'll probably get used to it by midway through. But in this system, all the hirelings are following the same order of operations. The only variable is the order card, which is already like the variable for the bots, and who is controlling them. If a bot is, you know, if you have 3 bots in the game, even though each one of those has an equal chance of drawing the different suits, those 3 bots are going to prioritize different things because of their state in the game, how far ahead they are, where they have guys, where the other people are. So the variability is already baked into it. It's based off of who is utilizing the hireling. Again, like the hirelings for human players. But it's, you know, it could, there's some valid criticism I suppose people could have that you could make the bots more different, but I don't know. I like this system because also hirelings for me at this point in my life are going to be used so sparingly. You know, I'm not cranking out multiple games, even 1 game with other human players around the table where we can all choose different hirelings and kind of get them going a lot. I'm not even doing that with solo games right now. And who knows, maybe in the winter I can carve out more time. But for right now, I'm already not using the hirelings enough, and especially the regular out-of-the-box ones. So to have a system that actually uses these printed cards that I already have, and it just has different ways of me for interpreting those couple of rules that, you know, refer to you and choosing and that sort of stuff, I really like that because I get to use the nice ones I have now rather than use the system with the nice pawns, which, you know, all the meeples are awesome, but with printed out cards and slightly different than these already. You know, I've talked about before, I love the ROOTbots a ton, obviously, but there's something to be said for the more you play with them, the more familiar you are with that way the faction works. And sometimes that can bite you in the butt when you go back to the human side. Or, you know, if I'm used to piloting the ROOTbot cats, but then when I'm teaching it to another player, there are times when I might cross my wires a little bit. And this system would keep these all the same. It's just there are some adjustments that need to be made. But yeah, I think I'm really excited for it. Again, my primary excitement is that it's super streamlined. These 3 pages I know can be brought down. I'll drop a link down below or put it into the BGG thread whenever I do it. But I'm sure that there's a way I could get this down to like note card sized, key points to keep in mind, with maybe these like special faction changes on the backside, just like written out as they are here. So yeah, very much looking forward to it. But let me know down below, how many times have you played Hirelings the way they're intended? Because in that respect, I've done it very, very few times. Have you tried both of these systems? S's system, again, linked down below, or Nichita's system, also linked down below. And do you have opinions? Do you have your pros and cons? I'd love to hear them, as would, I'm sure, Benjamin at some point, because these are the two, they're the two systems that come to mind. One that totally remakes all these cards, and the other that comes up with a rule set that makes these cards usable. So I guess I'll leave you with that. And with that, thanks for taking a pause with Give Pause. I'm super excited to be back with like real Root content, and there will be more of that, but I'm sure it'll be mixed in between other non-real Root content too, or just totally different content in general, because there are some other games I'm excited about. But hope you have great fun playing games, and I will see you next time. Bye.